Hi, it's Friday, June 5th, 2020. My name is Noah Seeley, and welcome to my channel. So it's Friday today. I've officially finished my first work week with this channel, and I thought it would be fun to celebrate every Friday moving on with some machine learning news that I've found throughout the week. I think this will be a good way for me to keep up with the current climate of machine learning and artificial intelligence, which will help me stick with it in the upcoming months. These papers I'm reviewing and discussing are interesting, but it is important to kind of look at the bigger picture sometimes. I only actually recently came up with this idea, so the news I discuss today will be only from today, Friday, June 5th, 2020, but in the future I'll start looking at news relating to machine learning every day, as it may offer me a more well-rounded perspective of it. I'll share what I find is interesting out of that batch of news stories that I find. Maybe I'll include 3 or so that I find interesting and I think are worth sharing, or relevant to the current climate or future of machine learning. I'm hoping some of them will even relate to the topics of papers that we're looking at. For example, 2 of the 3 stories today will relate to some of the visualization models that we've been looking at. Once again, I've never really looked at a lot of machine learning related news, so if you think I'm missing out on anything or getting anything wrong, let me know in the comments below. I'm no journalist, but I'm just trying to get some of the more objective pieces of information out there with some discussion and personal opinions attached. And once again, this channel is meant for everyone, including me, to learn about machine learning and other coding concepts. So without any further delay, let's jump into the first story of today. So this one is an article talking about how the World Wildlife Federation in Indonesia is using machine learning to save critically endangered orangutans. This sounds like a fun story, so let's dive right into it. The story starts by introducing the Bornean orangutan. Their populations have diminished significantly in the last 60 years. This was caused by illegal poaching and trading of the animals, as well as the destruction of their habitats by humans. Basically, the problem here is that the current orangutan population and conditions are very complicated to track, as the species spend a lot of time in trees, kind of hidden from the researchers. So the WWF employed Amazon Web Services to use machine learning to try and uncover more about the conditions of these species. The WWF quote states that this should increase the efficiency of tracking these habitats, as well as reduce the resources needed to do so. This will allow the organization to spread out and track more and more areas which are affected by these conservation issues. So what's actually being done? Basically, the old method of recording these species was that researchers would have to go down into the habitat themselves, photograph the orangutans, and then download these photos into a database back at their camp. The process takes a lot of time and a lot of space. The solution now is to deploy technology such as motion detection cameras to replace those taking the photo. These photos will then be used in a dataset that can later be used to train and test machine learning models. It seems that these new models may be visualization architectures that can tell such things as the condition of the orangutan, like if they're sick, malnourished, pregnant, and more. This information can tell a lot about the population, such as the resources they may be in need of. This can ultimately help researchers and conservationists provide those needed resources to the species as efficiently and effectively as possible. Perhaps not having humans will attract more orangutans to the areas where they might have had their photo taken. I remember in an animal behavior class I took, we learned that the bolder individuals were more likely to approach foreign stimuli, such as humans, where shy individuals may stay hidden. This hidden camera approach may actually be able to capture a more well-rounded image of the population. Related to that point, I think it's great that researchers and data scientists have found a way to monitor a natural habitat in a non-invasive way, which in time will help them provide the needed resources to an otherwise endangered species. This is a great example of how machine learning has a lot of implications to help conservationists combat issues such as climate change and endangerment, and I'm super excited about it. The second story talks about how machine learning is very easy to abuse. This story is from an interview at the annual meeting for the American Society for Microbiology with microbiologist Nick Lohman on how he thinks artificial intelligence should be used within his work. He starts by addressing the implications machine learning may have within his work, how it may be able to predict treatments in a clinical setting, as there is no entity that is currently able to learn cell data from the datasets of billions of entries in the context of his work. He then goes on to talk about how he imagines while these datasets can make a model sophisticated enough to aid researchers with their work, they should tread carefully with it. Similar to statistics, researchers are able to make a model from basically any data they find, even if the data is wrong, or the model is predicting something unrelated or out of context that may arise concern from both the medical and non-medical communities. I think he's trying to reference studies that use statistics to make false claims and how researchers must be responsible with this newfound power. As with it, they are able to manipulate datasets and models to change around the data to fit false claims and false narratives. I like how he mentions that the model itself will simply just predict data for the researchers, but never actually tell them if they're doing anything wrong with it. It is up to the researchers themselves to determine that. that. He also addresses that a data set that takes information across many different labs must have consistent data. He says that it's very important the labs are all measuring the same thing, especially while making predictions of what genes to act on while making antibiotics for large-scale diseases. The interview ends with him saying that any research community who have the want to employ machine learning into their daily research need to have a very deep understanding of what techniques they use, how they're using them, and most importantly, why they're using them. So overall, the title of this article is a bit more dramatic than the actual contents. I think Nick Lohman is trying to bring a very important conversation to the table by raising the question of when to use machine learning and why. I don't think he actually has anything negative to say about it. Rather, he wants to be sure that it's being used effectively and accurately for research. Personally believe that machine learning and AI has become somewhat of a buzzword in a lot of cases, and there's a population who believes it should be used for every form of research and application ever made. In reality, this just isn't the case. Machine learning is a very complex tool that should be used for classifying and predicting data. For projects such as those in the microbiology community, they can be expensive and time-consuming, so it's important that people all over, not just in that community, are asking the questions of when to use machine learning and why. Obviously, it's a great tool for the issues that we're discussing in this video, but it's important to have a deep understanding of what it is and its potential application before suggesting its use. This is not to say it shouldn't be used in many different applications. It's just important to really discuss and analyze its use, accuracy, and its effectiveness in every context that it's put in. So let's end on a positive note. Our last story involves another application of a visualization model. This story is about the use of AI to detect lung cancer in scanned images. This story discusses how published research in Nature Medicine was able to create a program which could detect cancer in CT scans with a 94% accuracy. It said that this model actually outperforms doctors when detecting cancer on a single scan from a single individual. Basically, the model was trained from previously scanned images, and upon testing, it was put up against doctors. More specifically than before, this model would perform just as well as radiologists when both were given scans of a person over time, but would have 5% fewer false negatives and 11% fewer false positives when only given one photo of the individual. This is great news, but this type of model won't have a chance of getting approved for large-scale deployment until the researchers have a better understanding of why this model is able to perform so well. This is a familiar case of the paper we reviewed yesterday relating to the reverse engineering of a CNN in order to understand it better. I think there are two important issues here from this article, one being that it is extremely valuable that the model can perform so well, all while being just given one single scan. This means that the accuracy rate of scanning someone for the first time without any past medical history will improve, and early detection of cancers may be made more frequently. I believe that the sooner the cancer is detected, the earlier the treatment and the higher the survival rate, so this is great news. The other point that I want to bring up is the importance of the medical community not accepting this technology for large-scale deployment until it's understood further by the researchers. It's important that as we advance more and more with machine learning, that the time is taken in order to fully understand what is occurring within the models. This knowledge will contribute more to knowing how to use these technologies, but also how to make them better. We saw proof of this occurring in the paper I mentioned from yesterday, as Zeiler and Fergus were able to produce a more accurate model after they knew more about the original model they studied itself. Overall, though, it's very exciting to see such technologies being developed that will improve healthcare and ultimately make the survival rates from such diseases higher and higher. So yeah, those were just a few stories from today relating to machine learning that I found interesting and wanted to share. Thanks for listening, guys. Once again, tomorrow I will return to the regular business, probably a few leak code problems again, but I just wanted to take Fridays to go over these stories so we can start getting a bigger image of what machine learning is and how it's being used in today's world. As always, I've cited all my sources in the description below. If you think I've missed anything or got anything wrong, please let me know in the comments below. It's important that we take into account all perspectives of the stories we talk about during these special Friday episodes. That's all for today though. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.